A fragile ceasefire deal has been reached between Israel and Hamas as 3 Israeli hostages return to their families as well. Joining me live to discuss this is the Australian's foreign editor, Greg Sheridan. Greg, always great to see you. Thank you for joining us. It's finally happened here. What are your thoughts on the deal more broadly, I guess the stages of the deal and whether or not it will stick?
Holly, look, it's a magnificent moment and you couldn't fail to be moved by those 3 young Israeli women. God knows what they've endured at the hands of these barbarians in Hamas for 15 months. But it's a wonderful thing that they're back with their family. The cruelty and sadism and madness of Hamas in continuing to keep another 90-odd Israeli hostages, all the suffering for the people of Gaza could have been finished a year ago if Hamas had released the hostages. It's a very good move. It may bring in an end to hostilities, but it's very complicated. It's very difficult. Israel has made big concessions. Stage 2, Israel is meant to withdraw from almost all of Gaza, including the border with Egypt. That's going to be very difficult. They'll have to be assured that there's not going to be weapons smuggling across that border. Look, it's a hopeful first step, and you take any good news you can get in the Middle East, but it's a tough road ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of questions now around what happens in Gaza and what that future exactly looks like, as you've just alluded to there. A big conversation now too is obviously the part that the US has had in this. Joe Biden attempting to take some recognition for this deal, but also, of course, we've heard from Donald Trump saying that it was all his doing. What's your take on that?
Oh, look, I think it was all Trump's doing. I mean, Biden has been trying to bring about a ceasefire since day one to no effect. He proposed terms more or less identical to this ceasefire in May. But Trump has 2 qualities. He scares Hamas and he backs Israel. That gives him a lot of influence with Israel. You don't get influence in Israel by poking your tongue out at them and throwing rocks at them like the Albanese government does. You get influence with Israel by backing them. And Israel understands that Trump is the best backer they're ever going to get. So Trump's backing for this deal, in a sense, gave Netanyahu the political room to do this deal. And now a lot of people in Israel, they'll do anything to get the hostages back. But a lot of people in Israel are sceptical about this deal. They say you're going to withdraw from the border with Gaza and Egypt. That's where Hamas gets all its weapons from. You're going to let Hamas come back in charge. There's a lot of risk in this deal for Israel. Netanyahu could only do that under Trump. And Hamas, like everyone else in the world, no one is scared of Joe Biden, but they're scared of Trump. They don't know what Trump might do. And so before he became president, Trump said, get this done or all hell will break loose. And then all of a sudden, everybody was able to move, whereas they hadn't been able to move. So Trump has a lot of good and a lot of bad, but he gets all credit for this ceasefire.
Yeah, it's hard to ignore that this major historic moment is coming as he's about to enter the White House tomorrow. I mean, love him or hate him, it's an almighty political comeback. What are your thoughts on this? What are we going to see? I mean, he's made some big promises today. Of course, we saw the Village People and it was hard not to smile seeing him there on the stage dancing. A sign of what's to come, do we think?
Oh, absolutely. So, historically, I was a never Trumper. You know, I just thought he breached all the norms and so on. But in office from 2016, he was actually pretty good on foreign policy and he was pretty good on American economic policy. Said a lot of weird things. He's come back now, not like any other second-term president. He's full of energy. He's absolutely committed to his agenda. He's got his cabinet all picked. The cabinet's a weird mixture. There are some brilliant people. There are some conventional people. There are some MAGA, you know, America First nationalists, and there are some gargoyles and nut jobs. You know, it's the normal Trump mixture. But watching that rally today, it was incredible. There he is. He is 78. He was shot during the campaign. You know, a bullet grazed his ear. I think if that happened to me, I'd you know, take a week or 2 to kind of recover, you know. And he doesn't need to have rallies anymore. He's won the election. But he loves these rallies. And there were tens of thousands of people at the rally. Loads of people couldn't get in. Everybody wanted to get in. And there he was, talking his head off, dancing with the Village People. This is a presidency unlike any other. It's going to have good and it's going to have not so good. But I do think he's much stronger than Biden was or than Kamala Harris would have been, and that's got to be a net positive.
Yeah, I want to get your thoughts on this. Obviously, TikTok is a big discussion point at the moment, and sort of, I guess that is a sign of strength and power there, coming in against China and basically saying, well, go 50-50 unless you won't have our market and you'll be losing out in the long run. It's worked, right?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, Holly, I'm more ambivalent about this, and I'll have to see how the detail goes. So one of Trump's strengths is his strength. One of his weaknesses is the way everything is personalised. Now, Trump did really brilliantly on TikTok in the last election. He communicated with young people. As I say, he's 78, he's a New York property mogul. You wouldn't expect him to relate to young people. He did very well with young people by going on podcasts and by going on things like TikTok. But that shouldn't determine American policy. Now, the Congress said TikTok had to sever its connections with its Chinese parent or shut down, because two things bad about TikTok. It gathers information about its users and it distorts the news. It sends in to an audience which often doesn't get other news. It sends in anti-American, incidentally anti-Israel, pro-Chinese Communist Party news messages in its little news feeds. And TikTok has not severed its connection with its Chinese parent. Now, Trump has come in with this new deal saying it's going to be a 50-50 joint venture. Well, presumably part of the joint venture will stop the information on users going to the Chinese. Presumably part of the joint venture will stop the manipulation of news. We have to wait and see how this all unfolds. I think it would have been better if they'd just let the legislation take its effect. I mean, TikTok had every opportunity to sell itself, as it were. But that's Trump, you know, it's all very personalised. And I think the Congress will make sure that the 50-50 deal removes the offensive elements of TikTok that it was getting at through legislation.